join me, please stand and wave your hats and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'd like to welcome our moderator for this evening, Statesboro City Councilman Bill Bulloch.
That was a bit of a surprise. He was going to introduce these guys first. So I don't have a bio on either one of them, so I'll just make their introductions really short. We've got two candidates here for Republican Bulloch County Sheriff. That race is going to be, correct me if I'm wrong, May 24th. Thank you. May 24th, so make sure you guys get out to vote. And if you're going to want to register to vote for that election, you've got 30 days before the election to do that, so that's going to be until about April 21st of this month. On the far left, I want to give it up for Noel Brown. Like I said, I don't have a bio. And then on the right side of the stage here, please put your hands together for Jared Akins. It's going to be a pretty straightforward debate. The questions for tonight were culled together by Eric and his staff at the Bulloch County Republican Party based on questions submitted to them. We've got 10 questions, and we'll go back and forth after these guys get a chance to introduce themselves. Each question, each guy will get 90 seconds to answer, and we'll go back and forth. And there's an interesting wrinkle right in the middle. We're going to give the opportunity for each of the candidates to ask each other questions. So there'll be 2 questions, and each guy will be able to ask the other one 2 questions. So without further ado, let's get started. Jared, you won the coin toss, so go ahead and you got 2 minutes for an introduction.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jared Akins. I'm the Chief Deputy from the Sheriff's Office here, and I am one of 3 candidates for Sheriff in the race for 2016. I was born and raised in Statesboro. I attended Statesboro High School, also attended Georgia Southern University, and graduated with honors from there. I'm a man of my family. I'm married to Janela for the last 12 years. She is definitely my rock, my support, in not only my job, but in this election and in everything else that I do. 2 children, Gavin and Grayson, both public school students here in Bulloch County, and also a mother, Sherry Akins, longtime clerk here. My father, Herman Akins, has passed away. He was with the fire department for over 30 years. And Arnold Ray Akins was my uncle, longtime sheriff here as well. I'm proud of my family's reputation for service to this community. I'm invested in it, I believe in it, and I hope that I do them honor by my service with the Sheriff's Office. I'm also a man of my faith. I was baptized in the Primitive Baptist Church here in Bulloch County, and I adhere to that faith to this day. That faith informs every decision that I make, both in my personal life and for the Sheriff's Office. I believe in it, I believe in it strongly. I'm also a man of the law. I served for 6 years on patrol as a field training officer and also as a deputy working any call from a cat in a tree call to a serious felony, working those cases along with many other good men and women with the Sheriff's Office. I was also a field training officer during this period. The following 6 years I spent as an investigator, arresting child molesters, murderers, thieves, any kind of criminal that had committed a felony. And working those cases to my utmost ability, very proud of what I was able to accomplish in that. 3 years ago, Sheriff Anderson asked me if I would take over the position of Chief Deputy when it became vacated, and I accepted. That has probably been the most educational time of my period of service at the Sheriff's Office. It covered administrative issues, it covered budgetary issues, it covered personnel issues. It brought me into contact with agency heads, with commissioners, and with members of this community that I had never interacted with before. It was essential to my growth in the Sheriff's Office to occupy that position, because until you sit in that seat, it is very difficult to see how all the parts fit together and what the responsibilities of the office of sheriff really are. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to serve as your Chief Deputy. I've had people ask why I would want the office of the sheriff. First of all, this community is on the edge of tremendous growth. With ports in Savannah, the industrial park on 301 and I-16, We are in the crosshairs of where people will be moving to and where the development is going to happen. We have to have professional, experienced leadership to guide our sheriff's office through the times to come. It's important, it's critical to the lifestyle that we all live in this community. Second of all, the sheriff's office is my home. The people that I work with are as much family to me as my own blood family is, and we spend probably more time together than I do get to spend at home with them. I want to make sure that those deputies, the men, the women that serve you each and every day, serve you so well, have every opportunity to succeed and work for a professional agency. The sheriff's office is on the edge of being one of the most professional law enforcement agencies in the state of Georgia. I want to be around to be a part of the change that makes this office the envy of any other county in this state. I thank you for attending. I appreciate very much your interest in the race, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have today. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Noel Brown, your candidate for sheriff here in Bulloch County. I grew up here in Bulloch County, raised on a farm up in Portal. I've spent my whole adult life in law enforcement, also in the military. I know, without a doubt, I can be that person you need me to be, that sheriff that you need me to be. Upon graduating from high school in Portal in 1988, I went off into the United States Air Force over to my first duty station, which took me to the Persian Gulf. And I served there under Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and Desert Calm. That made an everlasting impact on my life. There I made many friends and worked alongside many, many people that I'll never forget. It was definitely a leadership role time for me. Upon returning back from that area to my duty station in England, I received 2 awards for my service in the Gulf. One, 3rd Air Force Fuel Specialist of the Year, and also United States Air Force in Europe. I also reached the rank of E4, which is sergeant, and I traveled back home to the United States to finish up my military career. Upon finishing my military career, I returned back home to Bulloch County to start my career in law enforcement. I went to the Law Enforcement Training Center at Armstrong State University. After completing there, I started my first job at Georgia Southern University, so I'm very proud of it. I reached the rank of corporal and assistant ship supervisor. It was at the time I was working at Georgia Southern, there was a call from a gentleman. He said, "Hey, boy, why don't you come over to the sheriff's office? We need you to go to work with us." And that was the late Sheriff Oliver Akins. I went there to work in 1998, August, and I've been there ever since. But I'll tell you a story about it. I worked my way through the ranks. 2002, field training officer, trained newly hired deputies arriving at the sheriff's office. I was promoted to the rank of corporal, still training people on the road, making misdemeanor and felony level cases. The greatest thing that ever happened was being selected as Deputy of the Year in 2013 by my peers and also my supervisors. Shortly after that, promoted to sergeant by Sheriff Matt Anderson over the division I work in today, which is civil warrants. I would like to say that if you would let me have a chance of leading this office, I would love to see one thing happen. Continue our assault on drugs, getting it off the road, getting it out of there. But there are other areas that we need to talk about. You have crimes against the elderly, against our children, and also domestic violence. It is very important that we make good cases. to where it goes all the way through the system, and not be quick to get back out on the road to commit that same crime again. I want each and every one of the people in the Bulloch County Sheriff's Office to know one thing: I love you. I will take care of you. I will make sure your salaries are where they need to be. I will make sure your benefits are where they need to be. I will stand beside you, not behind you. I would love to see one thing else. I would love to see a deputy in our schools here in Bulloch County. That is something that has been worked on, been work in progress. I'd love to see that completed and followed through with. I'd also like to say it would be a pleasure to work alongside the Bulloch County Commissioners, our chairman, and also the county manager, to make sure that we stay within the budget and keep your taxpayer dollars in mind. I pay taxes also. If I can stay within the budget, I'll tell you this: I still drive the same truck that I left high school with, a 1987 Toyota pickup truck. In closing, it would be an honor to be your sheriff. I would utilize the men and women inside that office that are, there's so many of them, so much untapped knowledge that can bring stuff to the table. I want to know their ideas. I want to know your ideas. I'm going to be open to that. You'll be able to come and talk to me. I thank you for being here tonight, and there's no doubt in my mind I can reach out. Thank you.
All right, guys, the intro is always the worst part. So take a deep breath and let me remind folks a couple things. If you got a phone that's on, at least put that thing on vibrate for us, would you, so they don't go off during the debate. Also, I want to remind our two candidates. Lindsay up front there is going to be our timekeeper. She's going to give you 90 seconds for each answer, and you go ahead and hold that thing up high. Don't be subtle about it. Just go ahead and wave it so they see it. And then, of course, lastly, gentlemen, just want to remind you, this is a debate, not a duel, so keep them in your holster. Also, tasing is not an acceptable rebuttal. All right, well, Jared, you started off, so Noel, you're going to get the first question. In your opinion, what experience in your background best qualifies you to be sheriff?
I'd say all the way back to the farm, but then shipping out overseas to fight the war. I didn't know where I was going to come home from. I tell you, it was a time that you worked multi-million-dollar equipment. Not only aircraft that you have on the ground, but you set off in the air. And equipment also on the ground, all of it, very expensive. Knowing that I had to stand there back, take care of it, not mess it up, but also all working together with the great men and women there at the time. We were a close unit. And I felt like, we were all leaders. Coming back home and being able to take over basically a fuel control center at Little Rock, Arkansas Air Force Base, at the rank of E4 Sergeant, that was something else. You were in charge of all flight line, distribution of fuel, and you definitely had to know what you were doing to deal with your towers and dealing with interaction of aircraft and equipment on the flight line. There's no doubt that that would aid and help me in this as being your sheriff.
Jared, yeah, in your opinion, what experience in your background best qualifies you to be sheriff?
I don't think it's one experience in particular. I think it's the sum of all that you've done in your career that goes to make you the leader that you are. You have to start from the very beginning on patrol. You learn the lessons of people. You learn how to interact with people in a positive way. If you need to take them to jail, you take them to jail in as easy of a fashion as what they will allow you to do. You have to learn what makes people tick, and nothing is more vital to a deputy than that initial road experience and doing that. Following through with that, experience as an investigator, putting cases together, putting cases that will actually stick in court together, that pass the test of a judge or a jury. Teaches you how to write things out, to plan out on paper, to put it to an audience who knows nothing about the situation and make it understandable to you. That communication aspect was vital in my education, certainly, and it came from investigations. And then finally, the last 3 years, again, as chief deputy, were formative. I can tell you this in all honesty. If I had come to this podium straight out of investigations and patrol, I would not have been a candidate that I would have felt comfortable presenting to you. But that administrative experience, that supervision of those 130 deputies throughout whatever division they worked with over the last 3 years has truly been a benefit to me.
Thank you, gentlemen. All right, Jared, we'll start with you on this one. Bulloch County is somewhat unique in the fact that it has multiple law enforcement agencies. As sheriff, how would you manage the Bulloch County Sheriff's Department relationships with other law enforcement agencies in the county and in the surrounding counties? Also, what initiatives, partnerships, or policies would you implement?
Bulloch County is tremendously blessed to have wonderful law enforcement agencies, but cooperation and coordination are the key to that. In the bad old days, and many of y'all remember that, when one agency wouldn't share information with another, when there was no partnerships, when people stopped city limit signs, we were working against one another at that point in time. I've never met a criminal that looked at a map and said, I'm going to stop here because this is the city limits, or this is where the county starts. If we can arrest them in Statesboro before they get to Middle Ground or Portal or Stilson or vice versa, I'm good with that. We have to ensure clear lines of communication between the police chiefs of all these agencies and the supervisors there with our guys, making sure that we share that information. Things like the crime suppression team, wildly successful over a 2-year period, somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,000 arrests, focusing on areas that affect both the county, the city, and also Georgia Southern. We're a community. We have to address crime as a community. And if we try to go it alone, if we try to keep our territory where it belongs and keep others out, we're doing ourselves a disservice. The last 3 years have seen the greatest improvement in our relationship with other agencies that I've ever seen in my time here. And I intend on keeping that forward momentum in any way that I can possibly think to do it by cooperating with these other agency heads and their officers.
There is no doubt that I love each and every agency in this county. I speak to each and every one of them on a daily basis. Sometimes call them up just to help a little something. They real quick to do that. When I say that, not only law enforcement agencies, but also agencies in our judicial system, our probation, many different things, many avenues, the DA's office, their investigators. We've got so many fruits that we can pull from. And I know that I want to keep on doing the same thing I've always done, for working with them. I see those people on a daily basis. I feel like that we've never really ever had a problem. You know, sometimes we tug and we disagree with who's in charge, but you know what? I think we work more together. I look at so many out here in this audience right now that I see that are in charge of some of these agencies. And I know that I work well with you along with the rest of our office. We've got an office full of people that's always willing to help any way they can. And each of those other offices, I've never had somebody tell me, no, Brian, I'm not going to help you. They go above and beyond. And I know that we'll continue to do that. What I'd love to see is gatherings again, unify that. I feel like I'm probably going to be the one to do that. When I say I'm talking about getting together, you're not doing nothing but eating, talking, discussing stuff. Yes, we get together in offices and we talk in offices. How about some downtime? Maybe a daggone picnic or something, you know? There's nothing wrong with that. Thank you.
All right, Bill, back to you. How integral are special units like the crime suppression team to the safety of Bulloch County, especially in areas prone to high crime, high drug use, and dealing? What are your plans for maintaining units like this if elected?
They are essential and they will stay in place. We need those. We got to have them. With the high rate of crime that we have coming in from different areas, these guys are doing an awesome job. They stay on top of it. Seizures, one after the other, related to the drugs, and the groups that are doing the drugs and selling them. These guys go above and beyond, working along with the magistrate court, superior court judges, and taking care of that and getting those things sing about. There's a lot of revenue coming in from that area into our general fund that can be used. But one thing I would ask is when you're doing those parts of your duties, make sure you take time, make good, clear, concise cases, because we don't want those people back out on the street again. Mentioning having to return property to people, we don't want to have to do that. Let's make sure we get it right the first time. Because again, I love each and every one of them. Nobody in that office that don't. Definitely a place for it. I'm 101% behind it. Thank you.
Specialized units, the larger an agency gets, is essential. In a lot of the metro agencies, you may see detectives that work property crimes, that may work drug crimes only. So the larger you grow, the more you have to specialize. We all can't be on patrol. Crime suppression was one effort that we undertook to marry a uniform component with drug investigators, investigators who could work violent crimes in areas where by statistics we knew that there were problems. And they've been extremely successful in doing that. The UCR reports last year, according to the Statesboro Police Department, showed a tremendous decrease in robberies along the near drive area. That's tremendous for us because that is predominantly college students. It's a gateway into Statesboro, and we want that to be a good example of what Statesboro is. Again, the larger we see this agency grow, the more we're going to have to specialize. We have to have different things to address different problems. I don't want to leave the patrol guys out in this thing. Whereas crime suppression may be the sword that we use, patrol is the shield. Patrol defends all of our people as crime suppression or our specialized investigative units go out and they proactively enforce our laws and arrest criminals. So both sides are important components in this. You can't have one without the other. And another thing is the information sharing. It's not just about the arrest. It's about the networking that goes on between our agencies. We have to be able to share that information in order to be effective. And the specialized units fit that bill as well.
Okay, both of you guys, in your recent answers here, just mentioned growth. So we'll start this one with Jared. Maybe you can expound a little bit upon the growth. The question is this, in your opinion, what's the major law enforcement issue facing Bulloch County, and what other issues do you see us facing as we continue to grow as a community? What policies will you implement as sheriff to address that growth?
Growth is a fact of life, and I think sometimes people assume that law enforcement is really wanting it to be another Atlanta, and we're not doing that. Most of us were happy and content with Statesboro was as we remembered it many years ago. But unfortunately, the growth that comes in has positive and negative effects, and will never be small again. How we handle that growth from a standpoint of budgets, appropriating the necessary deputies and equipment to continue to keep up with the growth in population that we've seen is essential. That takes planning. We have to plan with our board of commissioners. We have to plan with our law enforcement agencies. We have to plan with our stakeholders inside the agency who have good ideas. If we don't take a proactive approach to planning for this growth, it will overwhelm us. A couple of years ago, we went to the board of commissioners and said, look, our patrol guys are getting killed. They are getting overwhelmed by the number of calls that we've got. We worked with them to develop a plan to hire 4 more deputies on over a 2-year period. That has helped the patrol guys tremendously. And that's just one example of cooperation that we have to have with our elected officials. Every dime that we get, for the most part, comes out of your property taxes every December. We're very cognizant of that fact. So we understand that everything that we ask for has to be funded by taxpayers. So we have to be very responsible to you as citizens, very responsible to the commissioners and the duties that they have. But planning is essential going forward.
No unique question?
In reference to growth,
Yes, not.
there's many more tap-ins than just at the sheriff's office. There's grants that can be written and asked for from the federal government. And that's something we need to start doing. There needs to be somebody writing grants and taking care of that. Again, working close with our board of commissioners, county manager, and our chairman in the different kind of ways that we can make that happen. It is growing. We are undermanned on our road patrol right now. Something I'm very concerned with. We've got to get our numbers back up. That is our first line of defense, especially, again, growing. I mentioned something earlier about a crime that is growing, and that's a crime against our elderly and our children, and again, domestic violence. With growth, we're going to see more of that. That is because of social networking, all your different type of computer stuff going on now. Again, our elderly has picked up on the fact that their identities are being taken online, and that comes with the growth. That's what's caused this. We've got a lot of predators coming in this area now that are definitely going after our elderly, and that's a big concern of mine.
All right, Noel, this one is for you. What plans do you have in place to ensure officers are distributed throughout the county at all times to respond quickly to emergencies and/or crimes?
Going back to what I mentioned earlier about deputies in our schools, would we want them to leave the school? No. That would spread them out throughout the county. But I would love, again, to see more deputies on our first line of defense, which is our road patrol. I know that we got EMS and fire in different places like in Brooklyn, maybe plans of it in Portal. I would love to see them where they might be able to go into a desk or a computer or be able to take time to be seen in areas like that. Basically a deterrent. Back at school again, they're there already. They're parked there. They can leave from there and go to something real quick. We've got to spread them out. We can't stay in one area all day. Statesboro, I love you, but we got a whole bunch more out there in the county.
Bulloch County is 684 square miles. We typically run 6 to 7 deputies on the shift. The issue is one that we debated for years, and I agree that we need to work zones in some form in this county. But for every deputy that we would have to hire on, and we've done the math, and it would take somewhere around 16 additional patrol deputies to work zones that were small enough to make a difference in this county. That's $1.6 million in additional funding the first year, and slightly less after that. That's something that we can fix tomorrow, but the taxpayers are going to have to be willing to go to the commissioners and say, we're willing to pay that price. School resource officers are an excellent asset to have. However, funding again, the same $100,000 for the first year per deputy comes in. I'm proud to announce this afternoon that on the school board's desk right now is a memorandum of understanding between the Sheriff's Office, the Board of Commissioners, and the school board. It's an agreement in principle to fund the first 2 school resource officers in the Sheriff's Office history for the school year beginning this next fall. I'm very proud of that achievement. It's taken years for us to get to that point. And that illustrates just how difficult it is to find the funding. We were only able to do that through some savings in our budget this year and some help, let's just say, from the school board. We're very proud of that fact, but we definitely need to work towards a stronger patrol stream so we can work zones and incorporate those things in our patrol schedule.
Okay, Jared, this next one is for you. A recent report shows that as many as 20 states will have ballot measures legalizing some form of medical or recreational marijuana on the ballot in November. 35 states already have some form of legalized medical marijuana, and the Georgia State Legislature has considered some form of legalization for the past couple of sessions. As sheriff, how does this potential legalization affect the Bulloch County Sheriff's Department?
Laws are made by the legislature and signed by the governor. That's been law for hundreds of years now. The sheriff is charged with enforcing whatever laws they come out with. My personal stance on drugs of any kind, the way that I raise my children, is that it is wrong to do it. Don't get into it, run away from it. Drugs are bad. My personal stance as an officer of the state government, as an officer of the courts, would be that we will enforce whatever laws are on the books currently. If they change the laws on marijuana, less than an ounce, medical marijuana, any other kind of drug, then we will abide by what the legislature gives us as guidance. When we take a case to court, the judge instructs the jury, they are not to read anything into the law. They are to read the law as it is and apply it. That is the responsibility of the sheriff. My personal feelings on it, it's harmful. I don't think we need that in our community, in our schools. But there's a push on right now in our legislature, in our state government, to make certain things more allowable. If that goes through, then obviously we will obey the law as it's passed in Atlanta.
As your sheriff, any laws that are passed having to legalize marijuana for medical use, I will have to enforce, but also I will have our guys monitoring the fact of what's going on with it. Don't agree with it, don't want it, but I'd have to go abide by the laws that are handed down. I will stand fast in the fact that we stayed on top of the ones that supposedly were using it for medical use. You'd have to know them, my residents. A lot of people think I'd be infringing a bunch of their personal rights. I would not. We'd need to know where they're at. I'd almost think like a sex offender. I would want to know where they were at. That's something, again, that we'd want to stay on top of. But again, enforce the law as needed.
All right, gentlemen, I mentioned at the beginning, this will be the opportunity for you guys to ask questions of each other. And since we're going back and forth, Noel, you get to ask the first question. Jared, you get the first answer.
Jerry, the last 3 and some odd months, 3 years and some odd months, as chief deputy, you were promoted to that position. Over several people, more trained and experienced. 3 captains who have been to FBI academy. A lot of training, and
I can't hear what you're saying.
Jerry,
There we go.
can we hear me now?
Can you hear that, ma'am? Okay.
For the last 3 years and some odd months, you've been chief deputy at the sheriff's office. You were promoted over several deputies with more training, more hours, more tenure than yourself, along with 3 captains I know of that went through the FBI academy. Do you feel like, over all those guys, all that training, all that experience, that you are the choice for chief deputy?
You'd have to ask the sheriff about that one. He was the one that picked it, and his reasons are his own. I do not know what they are. I would like to think in the last 3 years that I have not made a mockery of the office, that I have not awarded any promotions over anybody with the experience that they have, and they're extremely capable captains. My hat's off to them for the service that they've rendered, and the school that they've been to. But I think we've been able to form a very workable partnership. They have different views, they have different sets of experiences. I certainly do. But working together as a team, we've overcome what could have been a situation where there were a lot of hard feelings, a lot of problems. We worked through that. And I think we worked through it to the benefit of the agency. Some of those same guys are some of my best friends and strongest supporters. So I'm thankful for them, and my hat's off to them for working through that process in the way that they did.
We were talking about earlier about funds and ways to maybe add deputies on the road. Having to do with our payroll and the budget. You are on an hourly wage with overtime, as so many others in upper management, except for the sheriff. Do you feel like if we went to a salary, maybe with comp time, with captains and above, maybe with a day off, hours off to comp you for your time of overtime, that we could save money and put more deputies back on the road?
It's something we could look at when you get into talking about overtime and comp time. You get into the Fair Labor Standards Act, and you get into some things that if you're not really careful, you open up a can of worms that's probably larger than what you actually want to. In some interpretations of what the Garcia law says, if you supervise anything more than 2, then that changes actually what bracket you're in and what you can be paid at. I wouldn't be opposed to looking at it. The only thing that I would caution you about comp time is comp time typically for somebody who is working an awful lot of time, they've got cases. Investigators are a good example of that. If you try to pay an investigator comp time, he'll never take off, because between court appearances, new cases that he catches, those kind of things, there's just very little opportunity to take that. I don't know that it would save enough money in overtime to hire anybody else on. Again, that $100,000 is what you're looking at for a first-year hire to get him on the street. So it would be something to take a look at. If the Board of Commissioners is willing to do it, we certainly look
All right, Jared, you want to go ahead and ask your question?
No, any particular plans, if you're elected sheriff, personnel changes, what you would like to see different as far as the structure and the setup of the office?
The structure's fine. There's several people I'd like to see brought up in the ranks that can bring something to the table here in Bulloch County. I feel like there's so much untapped knowledge that we've overlooked, and I feel like it really brings some good ideas. I feel like they bring an idea of maybe the equipment we're using to where we utilize everybody inside the office when we decide to do those things instead of just a small group of people. That's because those are the people putting boots on the ground, getting the job done every day, and we need to know that it's something that's going to work.
Any particular thoughts on the budget process and the way it's been done in the last couple of years? Anything that you would like to see changed about the budget process and how we obtain our money?
Again, with grant writing, I think we may be able to help with the budget process. I feel like we can stay probably within what we got right now, but if we we looked into some good, smart people that we have in the office, start tapping into some of those federal funds, they're overflowing. I know where they're at, and I want somebody to get started on writing those grants on them.
All right, folks, we've got, maybe take a little stretch there, take a deep breath. We've got about 4 questions. 4 questions left. I know these guys could probably use a little deep breath, so we'll give them that opportunity. And I just wanted to remind you that as you listen to this next question, these questions were put together by the Bulloch County Republican Party, and based on submissions, I in no way had anything to do with this next question. Is pretty much what I'm getting at here.
I don't know the lottery number.
Let's see, I think we're back to Noel on this one. Noel, both of you have made statements regarding the recruitment, compensation, and retention of experienced officers and support staff. The city of Statesboro recently took action to position itself more competitively in forms of compensation. As Sheriff, what will you do to ensure that the Bulloch County Sheriff's Office is able to recruit and retain the best employees and officers possible?
Definitely would love to work on our salaries. I know that's something we have to work on with our county commission, our county chairman, and also our county manager. But definitely, again, we're going back to federal funding. There are some places where we could get more money to be more attractive to people that's wanting to get started in law enforcement. I know I would definitely want to have a better package as far as retirement, benefits, that would definitely make people want to come forward and work with us. I feel like we need to be out at the schools, Georgia Southern, Agitchi Tech, some of our area smaller colleges, with job fairs and attracting those people to come and work at the Bulloch County Sheriff's Office, because it is a great place to work. I know we could come up with a package and make that happen.
Want me to repeat the question?
Yeah. As far as recruiting goes, that's probably the toughest thing that we try to do nowadays. When the recession was on, we were getting people with master's degrees that were willing to take any kind of job that we had. As the economy improved, they found other options. Now we hire maybe 1 out of every 10 applicants because of background checks, because of physical fitness tests we require them to go through. Most of these guys that we're getting nowadays simply do not make our standards. I think in order to recruit, we have to do what we've done the last 2 years in the budget process. We have to lay out our case to the commissioners for a raise in the initial starting salary, and also, as we did this year, for longevity raises that reward deputies who are not supervisors, who have stayed with us for 2, for 5, for 10 years, to keep them with us. Retention is just as hard. Agencies within 50 miles of here pay $10,000 more on starting salary. A lot of guys love this county just like I do. They want to stay here. But we have to have incentives for them to do that. We definitely need to revisit the pay scale and also revisit the benefits package. Benefits are a huge thing, especially with people that have kids and families who choose to stay here. We think that's critically important. And we also have to train them. Training is important. 8,000 hours of training last year agency-wide. If you can train an individual and make him proud of what he's accomplished with that agency, you're much more apt to keep him than if he never receives training and never receives the benefit of his service. So we would definitely push forward with all those with cooperation with commissioners.
All right, this next one is for you, Jared. DARE programs have always been an important educational tool for young students in the classroom. In your opinion, are programs like these important to Bulloch County youth, and where do you see the future of DARE in the schools?
They're huge. When we brought DARE back with our Community Relations Division handling that, it was a tremendous impact to our schools. The interaction, not just the instruction, but the interaction between the kids and our deputies in a non-confrontational way has been tremendous. The instructors that we have are fantastic. With the two new school resource officers that we have coming online later on in this year, we'll be able to teach in the middle schools the GREAT program, which is the gang resistance education program. That's been requested by the school system based on feedback that they've gotten from the high schools and trying to catch kids at a younger age before they become members of some of the gangs that we have in Statesboro. Yes, we have 2 distinct areas of gang problems in this city. I think that anything that we can do to reach out to kids in the schools is a phenomenal asset to us later on. It makes our deputies safer in their interactions with not only parents, but kids as they grow up and go. And it simply brings us closer to the population that we serve. And that is a fantastic goal, regardless of whether it's through their instruction, grade instruction, or just deputies stopping by and walking through the schools. I think the future of DARE is bright. I think it will certainly be added to by the 2 additional SROs that are coming online this year, and I fully support it.
Without a doubt, there's nothing better than looking at James Rell, Jimmy Billings, Bob Danilo, and Jeff Thompson. And now here are 2 additionals. I think that's wonderful if you've ever watched them work inside of a room. It is awesome how they can captivate those kids and make them pay attention. It's essential to Bulloch County in our area what we're dealing with drugs. Not only that, they teach them leadership roles, how to get along, how to raise your hand, how to take care of their fellow classmates. They educate them early in life on manners. If you just come sometimes to some of the classes they teach, please do that. I'd love for you to see them at work, because they definitely do a fine job. My hat's off, I don't have one on, but they're some of the best we have in dealing with kids and educating them. And yes, the DARE program will stay 101% in effect as I am your sheriff.
All right. What is your plan for technological advancement within the Sheriff's Department? What role do you believe technology plays in modern law enforcement? And what are the trends you see that present the biggest opportunity to make Bulloch County more effective using technology?
We've got to have it with changing times. Even the computers that we've got now, they're already out of date. We got to update, we got to get them working better. I think one of the things I'd love to see, better camera systems, these guys out there for their safety, definitely looking at tablets or smartphones, a GPS device inside of our handheld radios. Because the last time I checked, if you're in a vehicle, you may sit there or you may take chase. Something may happen to you. It would definitely be good that you had that GPS in your radio. But also, again, back to the computers. With it stacked up inside of the vehicle, if you get in a wreck, all that stuff goes all over the place. I look at tablets, again, and iPhones being something of the future would definitely aid us, a little more compact, and something that we could deal with that would be beneficial to each one of the deputies on the road.
When we fielded the current MDTs that we have in the cars, they were completely new. The operating system was completely new for our agency because our previous operating system had crashed. We paid for the $500,000 upgrade for all of those computers in that operating system out of drug forfeiture money and monies that came not from taxpayers, but from criminals. I'm very proud of that fact. MDTs are standard operating procedure for every agency our size and up. Every agency uses those to make their cars basically a mobile office. Instead of building a substation someplace where somebody can duck into and maybe take a report, the cars themselves become mobile offices. And that's what we need to push for and strive to achieve for our guys. Body cams are coming. I get questions all the time about body cams. I had my doubts and concerns about how body cams have been presented initially. There's a bill right now that's on the governor's desk, House Bill 976, that Bill Hitchens, former Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety, put forth that clarifies legally what we have to do in order to use body cams and keep us safe from civil liability if we use them. It also has greatly reduced the cost if the governor signs those. So I think body cams are something that you're going to see coming in the future. It's a way of preserving evidence. It's a way of keeping our guys safe and doing a good job, saving them from liability from a false complaint, and also being transparent to the public. I think we need to explore that at some point in time.
All right, last question, gentlemen, and it looks like this one goes to Jared. In the past several years across the nation, there's been a rise in the number of high-profile officer-involved shootings, many involving minority suspects. This has led to phrases such as Black Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, and Blue Lives Matter entering the national lexicon. As sheriff, how would you address incidents like this and prepare your men to keep this from happening in Bulloch County?
You don't start preparing for a Ferguson the day of the Ferguson. You have to have relationships with your community for years before in order to mitigate an incident like they had. You have to put in practice community forums, relationships with people in different communities, in various communities. They have to have your cell phone number. They have to feel like they can come speak with you if there's a grievance or an issue. You have to have a strong internal affairs policy. You have to have an internal affairs policy that fairly addresses complaints that are made on deputies and defend not only the deputy from false complaints, but also the civilian if there was inappropriate behavior. You have to have a good relationship with your news outlets and your media because they can crucify you quicker than you can investigate an officer-involved shooting. So those relationships are critical. Above and beyond anything else, we have to remember that it's our community. It is as good or as bad as what we make it. It is as good or as bad as what our deputies are trained to deal with. We want to strive for crisis intervention training for all of our deputies, not just our jail staff, for training on mental health issues and the issues which may arise from those kind of situations so that we can better deal with and address individuals with those needs. There's a whole spectrum of things that we can do, but you have to put them in place now if you're going to want to use them in years to come. It doesn't happen overnight, and trust is not built overnight with any of our communities.
Some of the greatest things that's been implemented in reference to race relations or anything having to do with like the Ferguson incident is, again, I say James Rebel. He started a meeting over at a Julia P. Bryant school with a group of people there, and it's really been a helpful event on a regular basis. I feel like, again, being in our areas, speaking with each and every church throughout Bulloch County, and teaching the officers, be kind, treat people like you want to be treated. Those things aren't going to happen here if we keep one thing in mind. Again, watch your attitude with people. They may get rough with you, but sometimes you have to back up a step and say, hey, calm down. Some people say, well, is that the way to handle it? I say it is. You've got a minute to cool them down. But in the instant that something like that was to happen, we do have things to fall back on. And that is a working internal affairs office that can handle it. If there's something outside of them, they can investigate any kind of incident of that nature. It would probably be the GBI. In some cases, in civil rights violations, the federal government. But we definitely will follow any guideline we needed to. I would make sure it was enforced, but I also would tell you, I would not be standing behind the officer. I would be standing beside him.
All right, folks, that concludes our questions. And let me just tell you, as a member of the Statesboro City Council who's currently in the search for a police chief, I can tell you, as members of Bulloch County, you have two fine candidates standing in front of you. We are certainly blessed to have both of these guys as options for sheriff. Let me say thank you to Noel and Jared. And I look around the room and I see folks from the city, from Georgia Southern, from OTC, from the probate court, from all over the county and all over the community. So I want to say thank you to y'all for being here, to being interested in your community, because I believe there's more people in this room than voted at my city council election. So again, give yourselves a big round of applause. All right, we have closing statements left, and so 2 minutes for those guys. Jared, you get to go first.
Again, thank you to the Republican Party for putting this on tonight. Thank you for everybody that showed up. We have to have this kind of participation. This is an election that touches everybody in this county. This is an election that will probably decide the direction that the sheriff's office takes for the next several terms. It's incredibly important that you be aware of the issues that we're dealing with. Be aware of what's going on in your community. Please, please take action Ask questions. If you got a complaint, if you got a concern, please talk to us and address it. There's tremendous growth that's coming to this county. That has tremendous potential to make us a leader in this part of Georgia. I want people to look at Bulloch County and look at Statesboro and say, that's where we want to live. I want them to look from outside of this county at the sheriff's office and say, that's where I want to work. We've never had a vacancy that we've had a hard time filling, and we filled them at the expense of other agencies because people wanted to come work for us, and that is a blessing I am eternally thankful for. That means we're doing something right. We need to keep driving on and doing the right things. We need to be proactive on law enforcement. We need to be proactive on our community engagement with people. We need to be responsible to our taxpayers, and we need to be good partners, not only to the law enforcement agencies, to the district attorney's office, to the court system, to our board of commissioners, our city council. It's only by working together and having a sheriff with the vision to put these people together and push forward for the same objective will we make this sheriff's office take that next step, take that step into what could truly be a great office for a great community. My primary concern is simply this: the peace and safety of you and your families going forward into the future. I would like to be a part of making that a reality in our community. Thank you so much for coming out. Thank you for your questions.
The sheriff is the highest ranking law enforcement official in the county. He is elected by each and every one of you in all of Bulloch County. I know without a shadow of a doubt that I can perform that duty as sheriff. I know that with the support of the hard-working men and women of our office, with untapped knowledge, untapped, their support and your support, I can make it happen. I promise to be accessible and accountable for my actions. Training. It will be never ending. We got some of the finest training officers there is at the sheriff's office. The safety of those officers depends on that training. That's one thing, working closely with the Board of Commissioners, the chairman, and the county manager, I would never take a back seat on. I could not cut on safety and training. Again, back to our people inside our office. Those salaries, the years you've worked, getting your pay where it needs to be at. It's not so much that you need to be there several hours to make up maybe a bill that you need to pay that week. We need to make sure that your salary's where it needs to be. And your benefits need to be where they need to be. We want to stay tough on crime. And again, follow through with our deputy inside the school. I think that's a wonderful thing. It's some kind of a deterrent, and it keeps us from running up and down throughout. It has been one heck of a campaign. I'm running against an incumbent office. It's hard. It's been an uphill battle, but one that I'm here to fight for. And with the support of each and every one of you and your vote on May the 24th, we can make that happen and bring the Bulloch County Sheriff's Office back to the people of Bulloch County. Thank you. Be safe going home, and God bless you.
I want to say thanks to the Bulloch County Republican Party for putting this on. Thank you to Statesboro High School for holding it. My name is Phil Boyum, and thank you all for coming. Have a great night. Drive safe.